This is ODAT Chat, your instant connection to recovery and community, one day at a time. This podcast may contain strong language, sexual content, and spiritual truth. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, hi, friend. So glad you're here today. Welcome to the ODAT Chat podcast. My name is Arlena, and I'll be your host. In case you didn't know, ODAT stands for One Day at a Time. If you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, or you can get new episodes delivered right to your inbox by signing up for the newsletter at odatchat.com. The purpose of this podcast is to bring you stories from people who have suffered through addiction and alcoholism and found a way out to lead happy and purposeful lives. I also wanted to share the teachers, ideas, and exercises that have helped me on my own journey over the last 24 years. Today, I have a special announcement. I am beyond excited to share with you that I am launching a Sober Life School, where you can find step-by-step courses like The Connection Cure, 3 Steps to Overcoming Isolation, also Sobriety Reset, a Back to Basics class, and Relationship Rescue, How to Resolve Resentment and Reconnect with the One You Love. I hope you find it valuable, and not only for yourself and members of your sober community as well. I look forward to connecting with you there at soberlifeschool.com. So I'm honored to introduce the guest for today's episode. Tess Sweet is an award-winning director and writer known for Cleaner Daze, which was released in 2017, I Love You Like Crazy, which was released in 2011, and Annie in the Aisle of Irma, 2010. In 2011, Sweet graduated with an M.F.A. from the film and television directing program at the University of California, Los Angeles. Sweet now resides in the Bay Area, where she works as a freelance director and editor, serves as president of Loud and Clean, and runs programs for youth at risk. Tess shares her story about her own struggles with drugs and alcohol, her battle with cancer, and work as an artist and producer. Lucky for me, Tess lives close enough that she was able to come to my studio to record in person. Super excited. Let me just tell you, her name suits her. I found her to be beautiful, fun, deeply compassionate, and truly authentic. I know after this episode, you'll love her as much as I do. So with that, please enjoy this episode with the lovely Tess Sweet. Well, Tess, welcome to the ODAT Chat podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm so happy that you were actually local and you were able to come to my home. So this is actually kind of unique.
I know. It's really cool. Yeah. It's really cool.
I know a lot of times I've just been recording through Skype or Zoom now.
Oh, yeah. This is a treat.
This is so much better. It's just different when you can see somebody and chit chat beforehand.
Totally.
The energy is totally different.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So normally the way I start out is I ask people such rude questions like, how old are you? What do you do professionally? What do you look like?
Sure. Let's see. Well, I'm 46.
Okay.
And
You're
what
tall.
was the other?
How tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
Okay. Yeah, I'm short. I'm like 5'3".
Yeah, I'm tall. I'm 46, but I feel like I'm 46 going on 18.
Nice.
Because you know how they say when you start, when you get sober, that you kind of regress back to the age you were when you first started using.
You stop maturing emotionally when you start using.
I still feel like I'm playing catch up, even though I've been clean for over 17 years in a couple weeks. So on the Friday the 13th. No front. No front. So 16 years.
Some guy at a meeting tried to claim his 1 year a day early, and he got booed. And then he left. I think he was so butthurt he left.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but almost 17 years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I still feel like I'm figuring stuff out, and I still feel like I was asleep during the class of life skills. I know. Like, where am I? What am I doing?
Yeah, what's my purpose?
How do I figure this out? Tax forms? What? I've never had a business mind so much. Like, I'm definitely an artist.
Okay.
Square peg, round hole. Like I remember hearing somebody talk at a 12-step meeting, and he said he'd rather smoke crack and wind up naked somewhere than
to do taxes.
And it just always struck me because I could relate with that. Like, I'd rather smoke crack and wind up naked somewhere than sit in an office all day. That would be a spiritual death for me. Right. You know, I mean, God love the people who can do that. And I wish that I could.
Do you?
Definitely. I wish, because there's a lot of job opportunities if you want to be an administrator or in management or, you know, just sort of quote unquote normal jobs,
right?
You know, that has been tough for me. I never gravitated towards that.
Yeah, and you're in Silicon Valley. You're just over the hill in
I know,
Beach Town over there.
I know. I do wish sometimes I lived a little closer to San Jose or Silicon Valley, just in case I wanted to do more sort of tech work and freelance. But Santa Cruz, like the commute over, it's crazy. Super gnarly. Yeah. So, but I have to just trust that the plan is for me to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
Well, listen, you're doing some really cool stuff, so we'll totally get into it. And yeah, it's just interesting how as we get the longer we're sober, the more you find out who you really are and stop and start letting go of what you think you should be, right? That's kind of...
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And for me, you know, I think we live in a culture that always says, follow your dreams, follow your dreams. And we sort of recommend to people who are newly getting sober, like, remember the dreams you long forgot, follow your dream. And for me, it took me a long time to sort of develop interests and get a dream, because I think a lot of people, I've worked with teenagers, and some of them are so angry and they don't know what they want to do, and they're, you know, saddened and disheartened because they don't dream. And I have a lot of compassion for that, because I remember feeling that way, and it took me a long time. After I went through rehab, after I was in an SLE where I started, I went back to school. I took some classes at community college. And through this path of like starting with digital video production, and then I had a cable access show back when cable access, because that was before YouTube. That was before you could have your own show. Right. This was the time where the only way to do that was on cable access. So
sort of like Wayne's World.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Yeah. So, but it took a while for me to figure that out. You know,
it does take a while to figure out. You know, it's interesting, and we'll probably jump around. So
that's fine. That's how my brain works.
I've totally lost my train of thought. Wayne's World.
Oh, we were talking about cable access and Wayne's World, and I was saying that what we were talking about, discovering dreams.
Oh, right. Yeah. So I feel like we spend our formative years like trying to disconnect from our feelings, right? Yeah. So that, you know, we get sober, and then it's like, you know, what are my feelings? Well, who am I? It's like trying to rediscover all that from scratch, and
totally,
really hard.
Totally. And it was tough on me. I think when I was younger, a lot of people were sort of going off, and they already knew what they wanted to do. You know, people going and maybe doing pre-med, or, you know, they wanted to be nurses or lawyers or scientists, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And so when I discovered, particularly it was like weed and alcohol in the beginning, I could just enjoy the moment high and just push all that stuff down, and just sort of like that whole like, I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll think about it tomorrow. And the days went by, and also the shame and sadness of not participating in life and not going. My friends were going off and doing things, and I felt like I wasn't maturing. And then that sort of shame kind of feeds the demons, and then you numb out more. And
I think it's so hard when you're someone who is artistic. The whole point of being artistic is that it's like unknown, it's discovery, it's creating, but it's creating from a place of like a blank slate. So the artist's way is really a way of struggling and discovering and digging, and it's, you know, it's painful.
Yeah, it's painful. And the other thing about being an artist, it's a tough business to try to be in business with, because we live in a culture, particularly with film and video and also painting. I mean, whatever, to try to make a career of it is tough.
It is
Usually, that's why you see oftentimes in movies, or it's like if a child goes to their parents and says they're going to art school, like, oh, the parents freak out and, oh, isn't that devastating? And it's because it is a scary path.
It's a challenging.
Supposedly,
it's undefined.
Yeah, and supposedly with artists, I think the amount of people who make a living with their art, it's like 0.0028% or something. Yeah, it's not easy,
Wow.
But for me, I feel like on a deep gut level, it's just who I am. I've discovered that, and I also do paint. Like I love painting. I go to Burning Man, but storytelling through film and video is like that, I feel like I'm finally discovering what I love to do and who I am.
Yeah.
And directing is what I love.
That is so amazing. Yeah. So you brought up a few really good topics that we'll have to come back to.
Revisit.
Yeah. But let's start. Can we start out a little bit with like your family of origin?
Oh, totally.
I'm always curious about people's recovery story because it typically all leads back to things that happen in childhood. And I'm always curious about like the parents. Like, what did your parents do professionally? Where'd you grow up?
It's interesting because they often say if you are an addict or alcoholic that it's genetic and that it's like the parents or you had a bad childhood. And I can say that my trauma happened late in life. My childhood was, my parents loved me. They did divorce when I was young, but I don't think that there was any trauma, and they are not addicts at all. Like my father likes to drink half a beer. Who drinks half a beer?
Why bother?
He would like mix non-alcoholic and alcoholic because he doesn't like the way it makes him feel, which
so bizarre to me.
I know. And my mom's never drank. It gives her really bad migraines, so she can't drink. So yeah, there was a lot of love in my family. However, I do think if anything has been genetic in my sort of family, I would say passed down through the generations has been some depression and mental health stuff. Because I feel like sometimes I say I was born sad.
Okay.
I had a disposition of being unhappy.
Okay.
But there's it's not because I was beaten, not because I had a tough life. Yeah, I just always, and maybe that has to do with, my mom did leave, for a time.
How old were you when your parents got divorced?
I guess I was 4.
Oh, you're little.
Yeah.
And did your mother raise you?
No, I stayed with my dad, but then they split the time. So I was with them equally, half and half, But I was very close with both of them. And
do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have one sister.
Older or younger?
She's older.
Okay.
But I just feel like we lived in kind of a bad neighborhood, and so I spent a lot of time indoors watching a lot of TV. I feel like I was kind of because both my parents worked.
TV is the babysitter.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I watched a lot of TV, and I don't think the statistics weren't out yet. We've come to realize even Steve Jobs wouldn't let his kids have iPads.
Isn't that funny?
There's something to be said about the dangers of too much screen time where you don't learn to entertain yourself. I feel like my TV addiction, that's like a whole nother conversation, but I feel like my television watching.
Oh my
know.
God.
I watched so much TV as a child. I never learned how to entertain myself or be with quiet, be with silence, come up with my own things to do to entertain myself. And so I feel like it kind of set me up for addiction personally. That may not be true for everybody because other people do sports or they have, play music or I didn't really have any healthy outlets for stress besides eating and watching the Brady Bunch, or I could MASH. We watched a lot of TV as a family, it was comforting for me. I understand because when you have parents who work and we come home at the end of the day after school and nobody was there and
latchkey kids.
Yeah.
We're the latchkey kid generation.
Totally. So, but I don't blame my parents at all. They loved me so much. If there was anything to blame, is maybe I wish there had been a little more structure and eyes on me during some of what was happening in high school.
Yeah. Is
and
that when you started drinking or using?
Yeah.
How old were you the first time you did that?
I think I was like 13 the first time I smoked weed, or like went to a party where there was that kind of stuff happening. But then I went off to high school. I went to a couple of private schools where a lot of the kids in back east. I grew up back east.
You grew up back east.
Yeah, but some of the families were very wealthy and they weren't around that much, and they said, so there was a lot of more heavy drugs, a lot of like cocaine and things that I had not really encountered in my junior high,
no cocaine in junior high?
No,
weird.
I don't know, but I hear about it because I do work. I volunteer at the teen rehab in Scotts Valley called The Camp, and
you volunteer at the camp?
Yeah, once a week I go and bring a meeting in there, and the landscape of addiction has really changed for young people. It's a different. I mean, that's part of what my show Cleaner Daze is about. It's a different time. Kids are losing friends to overdose at 14.
Oh my God.
That didn't happen when I was a kid.
Yeah, me either.
It was like,
but they're doing. It's the addictions are starting with pharmaceutical drugs, right? Like
it's
Oxycontin,
like
Oxycodone,
or I'm learning all the terms. It actually helps me being there with my show because it keeps me sort of with the
lingo,
the pulse of pop culture and the pulse of the landscape of addiction. Whether it's the way they're vaping, like now it's Juul. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. What is it?
Juul is like vape, but it's this tiny, and some of them look like candy containers, and you can hide them because there's no smoke that comes out. Juul, and the kids are so into it. There are these little pods, but that's like the vaping nicotine thing. That's like this whole thing over here. But then over here with the drugs, it's Xannies.
Right.
Bars is what, Xannies, bars, dabs, purple drink, and also the edibles. The weed and it's different.
It's different, yeah. My son was telling me something about wax, THC wax.
Oh, yeah, that's dabs. That's I think it's the same thing. It's like that sticky, and they melt it on a knife. It's almost like hash, but it's stronger. I've heard it called weed crack.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so out of it.
I know.
I was such a pothead. I would have loved all this.
I know. And all the contraptions, all the devices
that's part of the weed thing, though. It's like, I remember feeling like this creative little soul, right? I mean, you could use an apple and turn it into a pipe.
That's written into season 2 of Cleaner Daze.
Oh, really?
Because that was part of my childhood. Yeah, we did it out of a carrot. An apple. That's funny. Yeah. Same thing. That's funny you said the apple.
Yeah.
But now they just like vape. It's all vaping. Because you can hide it, It
doesn't smell now, right?
No.
Wow,
and,
we couldn't get away with any of that. You smoke a little weed and everybody knows.
Right. Yeah.
Miles.
You can totally. I mean, I can still smell it sometimes downstairs from my stepson's room, but
Lord have mercy.
The vape, it's like, yeah. And also they have all these weird flavors.
Of weed?
Yeah, or just they'll mix it.
We need to start talking about weed.
I know. They'll mix it. They'll mix it with like grape tobacco and all this stuff.
That is so trippy.
Yeah.
So the drugs are like candy now for kids.
Pretty much.
That is so scary.
Yeah,
I have 2 teenage kids. It freaks me out.
I know. It is scary. And something about the Juul, because I just learned about Juul like a couple weeks ago at the camp, and something about it I found incredibly disturbing.
What?
Because I went online and I was reading about it, and parents were really upset because it's really marketed towards kids. Like they have some that look like little juice boxes, and they have it in flavors that sound, bubble gum, Charms Pops, things like that. Jolly Ranchers. What grown-up wants to be smoking Jolly Ranchers from a device that looks like a toy?
Right.
It's totally big, drug company or the tobacco industry, targeting kids.
That is so evil.
Yeah. And the girls were talking about, sitting in their room and just like juuling. I'm just sitting in my room and Juul for like 2 hours and one little pod has the equivalent nicotine of a pack of cigarettes. And she said she could do a pod in like half an hour. And just sit in her room and jewel. And I was like, first of all, what's juuling? And second of all, that's really gross.
Stop it.
Yeah,
Just
really
stop
disturbing.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe they'll crash and burn. I don't know. We've talked to our kids from, so I got sober before I had kids, and so we talked to them from day one.
Yeah.
People would come to the house, and my husband used to have a meeting in our home, and girls would come over and sit, and they're like, "Why do they come over? What are you guys talking about?" And we're just very open about.
Yeah.
So we've been talking to them. It's like, you have the gene, you have
Right.
the crazy star chromosome,
Right.
And be careful because you can go off the rails easy.
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes I've heard, I know a young woman who was raised in recovery, like going around to meetings with her mom, and then she went off the deep end, became a super gnarly alcoholic drug addict.
Yeah.
But then she knew where to go when she was ready for help. And now she has, I think, as much clean time as I do. She went to, when she was 16, she went to a recovery high school, and she was able to turn it around.
Really?
But
Okay.
whether somebody's going to get it or not, I think the wonderful thing about bringing meetings to people who aren't ready is that even if they're not ready, it just plants a seed, and they know that there's a place to go. Like the kids I work with at the camp, they're sitting there, and most of them, they don't want to be there. They were sent by their parents, or they were court ordered.
Right.
You can tell they're just cannot wait to get out and get loaded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just tell them, look, you might think this is a cult. You might hate the readings, be freaked out by the God thing, but just know 12-step meetings are free. They will always welcome you.
Yeah.
And when you are ready and you need help, there will always be a seat for you,
Yeah, and we talk to our kids a lot about, it's not about the drugs and alcohol. It's really, what matters to me is, why do you feel compelled to use in the first place?
Totally.
Like, what's really going on? And I don't know, you tell me. I mean, did you feel like you were using to escape something, or you just wanted to have fun? Like, what drew you?
I think I was self-medicating depression. I think
That's
so.
common,
But
right?
also, I think also being like, I was a chubby girl. I was really attracted to boys who didn't like me back, and for somebody,
rejected.
for me, relationships have been a big issue for me. Also, dealing with rejection by hitting the bottle, it was always sort of linked. I love with all my heart. I put the man on a pedestal, and when I get rejected, that's usually a source of wanting to check out. So I think, at first it was fun. It was, what do they say? It's fun, and then it's fun with problems, and then it's problems.
Right.
So it's fun for a long time, but then I felt like I wasn't growing, and it makes depression worse.
It does, huh?
Some people think
it's
they're
isolating.
Yeah.
Right? And there's nothing worse for an alcoholic or drug addict than loneliness, that feeling of being disconnected.
Oh, yeah. I remember when staying up all night doing speedballs or something horrible, and that feeling of hearing the birds in the morning.
I know. What is it about the birds in the morning? It's horrifying.
Because I don't stay up all night anymore. I'm tired. I go to bed at like 10, but I'm tired at 8, and
but you're just holding it together.
Yes. Yeah. But I remember, I'll never forget that lonely feeling of hearing the birds in the morning and looking out the window at people going to work. Because when the end of my using, like the bottom of the bottom, I was living in San Francisco, and I lived in a very busy area of the Mission, and I could look out my window and see people going off to work, carrying briefcases, and just that feeling of feeling completely separate and so less than, and like that's something I would never have. And the loneliness, I don't miss that.
No, that's absolutely horrifying.
I do not miss that.
Yeah, I heard this guy did a lecture on YouTube, and he was talking about everything that you think you know about alcoholism is wrong. Mm-hmm. And his premise was that it's that feeling of disconnection that causes the disease. Depression is very isolating, experience, condition, or mental state or whatever. But studies have shown that as we learn to connect, that we do feel our mental health is improved. And it's interesting that you talk about being locked into TV. You know, that I was the same way growing up. TV was a constant companion because we were the latchkey kids. My parents divorced as well, but it's not being able to feel connected to others. Like we just didn't have anybody to connect with. So that was at both your parents' house. You've had that sort of.
Yeah, I think so. Also, my parents didn't have a lot of. They weren't super social, so it's not like there were always people around.
Oh, yeah.
I have this memory of the household being kind of quiet. Just me and my sister fighting, or
I know. Fighting over clothes or whatever.
Yeah. You know, they say that, you know, alcohol is often that social lubricant, right? So I definitely, because I've always struggled with, I think, social encounters in general. I still do. I mean, I still don't like to go to parties that much.
Is it self-consciousness, do you think? Because I remember feeling super self-conscious, and then more self-centered. Yeah. The more I just kind of like retreat.
Yeah, and I think making small talk, all that stuff, and knowing what to say, and being uncomfortable in your skin, and, you know, I mean, when I was drinking, I would drink a whole lot before I went to a party, and then I'd have a blast. You know, I'd make all kinds of friends. I couldn't remember their names or who they were the next day, but it took all that away. And so I see why it's seductive for young people who are figuring out who they are. And, you know, my show is all about, for the most part, it's about the layers and the complex layers of addiction, because it takes place in a rehab, but all the people who work in the rehab are in recovery as well. And you see it's complicated, and you see the roots of addiction. And I totally have compassion for that time period, for being a teenager, because that's when it all happened for me. That's where it sort of went bad. That's where it started, you know. And
in the teenage years?
Yeah, and I think it's because as a teenager, like, it's so uncomfortable growing up. You don't know who you are. You're not an adult, but you're not a kid. And all this, you know, those hormones. You don't know who you are. And you sort of hate everybody, you know, because you hate yourself.
Right.
There's like, you know, it's that whole ugly duckling phase of, you know, you're pimply, you're awkward. You know, you just want to be in your room. And I remember that feeling of when I didn't feel like I was a kid anymore, but I didn't know my place in the world. It's, you know, it's not an easy time.
Yeah. We all need to belong. We all need to feel connected. And it's difficult when you feel awkward and self-conscious to do those things. Yeah. It's a setup. And so, of course, we're going to self-medicate with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So what happened that you got into recovery?
I'd say
you said you went to rehab?
Yeah, I had sort of all through my 20s, it was sort of a spiral of, it just got worse and worse. I was a victim of a violent crime when I was 21, I guess. A violent crime? Yeah, I was raped at gunpoint. Yeah, and it changed me forever.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
Oh my God, by gunpoint.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes trauma does shape addiction.
Absolutely.
Because before that happened, I drank and smoked weed, but it was fun.
You could take it or leave it.
Something changed. I mean, I could take it or leave it, but I mostly took it. But it was fun. It was still fun.
It was still fun.
Yeah, it was like I was...
No consequences.
No.
Did you ever get arrested?
No, but that happened, and like something in my heart broke.
Yeah. You were 20. How old were you?
I was 21. But I was also with two guys. And I always felt safe as a woman. When I'm with people, when I'm with a couple guys, I'm not on guard at all. I feel safe, or at least I did, you know. But because we're taught as women, when you're alone, it's night, you're sort of like checking out. Yeah, and you're very much on guard, and you're aware of the fact you're alone. But I was hit by I'd had a car accident that day for the first time I went. I know.
That's a rough day.
I know. I was hit, and it wasn't my fault. And I went to the hospital, and so my boyfriend at the time was picking me up at the hospital with. We were coming home from the hospital. I just had like bruises across here from where the seatbelt saved my life.
Holy shit.
But we were coming home and I was with these guys, and these two guys with disguises on. It was like a scene from a horrible movie. Yeah. And they had guns, and it was terrifying.
They took you were you out on the street?
We were coming up from the parking garage. My mom lived in an apartment, and I was living at home at that time because I had moved home for a little bit, and while I was going to art school in Baltimore. And yeah, we came home and there were three of us, and it was just like this condo community, but it was dark and kind of surrounded by a bad neighborhood, kind of, but it was a nice neighborhood. I don't know. I mean, in hindsight, like, you just go back and think, well, what if that had never happened, and how would my life have been different? But after that happened, and there was something in me that I just didn't believe in life anymore, or something where I didn't believe that the world was a welcoming and loving place for me in it.
Changed your view of the world.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. I was raised by hippie feminists, like peace and love, sort of, everybody's good in their hearts. Like,
people are mostly good.
Yeah, and that just changed me. And I think it was almost a year after, it was right after I testified against the guys and they went to jail, that I did heroin for the first time.
After you testified?
Yeah, it was like a week later.
Was it because it brought it all back to you?
I think so. I think I was just so broken in my life, and I had a new boyfriend who I didn't know was like partaking in that. I'd never been around it.
Heroin?
But yeah.
Oh, he was doing heroin.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think sometimes what I've come to realize is that often a lot of women who I know, who it's like all it takes is one bad boyfriend, and we're so affected. Although I'm sure it goes the other way too. Sure, sometimes a shitty girlfriend. But yeah, it was just all the stars were aligned not in my favor. Right. I was very vulnerable, I think, and super broken, and I just didn't care anymore. Okay. I was really hopeless. And so that sent me on a sort of downward spiral through my 20s. There was always this voice in my head, though, that I knew better. I knew I was not destined for great things, but I knew that I could do better. There was always that little voice, and I think everybody has that little voice.
I think so too.
And at a certain point, I just thought there's that little voice that no matter what I did, it was always there. And I don't want to get totally lost in a drug log, but it was all through my 20s that it was like that. It was like,
just like same thing over and over.
Yeah. And sometimes I also went to the psych ward several times. And eventually I hit a fork in the road moment that was sort of an overdose experience.
Did you like cross over and come back kind of a thing, or?
Kind of, in that I woke up naked on the bathroom floor. This was in that apartment in San Francisco. And I didn't know how I got there. I was, the shower was running. I guess it had been running all night. There was water everywhere. And I went into my bedroom, and there were beer cans everywhere. And I didn't even remember having company. And there was a used condom on the bed. And I didn't remember having anybody over. I mean, thank God that we used a condom, but it was a wake-up call.
That's the good news and the bad news.
Right. Yeah. It was some sort of, I don't know, that broke. I'll never forget that feeling. I checked into rehab, I think either later that day or the next day.
Wow.
And it was my second time in rehab. I had gone to rehab a couple years before, but I lasted like 2 days.
You weren't ready.
Yeah, I sobered up, and then I was like, I changed my mind and hitchhiked home barefoot.
It was all a big mistake.
Yeah, but this time I was done.
2 years?
I think, in between the one, it's all a blur. I think it was about 2 years.
Because there just seems to be this I've just noticed from doing so many podcasts and talking to people over the years that there seems to be like this 2-year window where it takes a while for the idea of alcoholism. Like, am I an alcoholic? That's a really big question, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a long time for that to really sink into all the layers to get down to your heart of, is this the issue?
Right. Yeah, totally. I definitely wasn't ready. And then this time I was.
So where did you go? What rehab did you go to?
I went to a rehab called Newbridge in Berkeley.
Okay.
And I was there this time. I don't know. I loved when I first got there, there's this, you look around and at the people and you're like, these aren't my people. None of these are my people. But then you end up I loved my roommates.
Aww.
These women that I never would have connected with out there.
Why? Were they different from you?
Just different, different backgrounds, different ages, different everything. Yeah. And, but the emotions that we shared in groups, I mean, that's what it comes down to, the healing power of one addict helping another.
Isn't it amazing how, I mean, I've gone to meetings where I'm like, these people aren't going to relate to me. And I start talking about the feelings, and the feelings are always all the same.
Yeah.
Once we start talking loneliness and being disconnected, and then, sharing that pain, everyone's like, oh my God, I have that too. And suddenly you're connected at the heart level, which crosses all boundaries.
Yeah. And for me, this is what I also talk with, the kids that I work with, is that a lot of people will lecture you about all the reasons why you shouldn't be drinking, and none of that lecturing is going to make a change. But what will help is connecting with another person who's lived it or who is living it. Like, that's why we go to meetings, is to hear from other people who are going through the same thing, who have survived it, and who are now, I mean, when I was early in recovery, hearing from somebody who had 15 years clean, I just was like, wow, how is that possible?
Right.
I couldn't even imagine one day. Well, one day was easy. I couldn't imagine 3 days. One day I did that often just to prove to myself, I could do that.
Right, right.
I could do one day, but like 3, no.
No.
Well, in the end anyway,
Right. What were those first, rehab was 30 days?
Yeah.
What were those first 30 days like for you?
I think that it was helpful for me to be removed from my world. I know some people can do outpatient, or I couldn't do that. I needed to be taken off that corner of 16th and Mission in San Francisco into this safe little bubble, couches and talking. And, there was some staff I didn't like. They were kind of mean, and they've been inspiration for my show, Cleaner Daze. You always have to have your antagonists.
Your asshole counselor.
Exactly.
Will call you on your shit, right?
Right. And so, but I just really took direction this time.
Okay.
I got a lot out of the program. Everybody really encouraged me to do an SLE. Back then they were called halfway houses. And I was resistant, but then that was helpful too.
Right.
I did that for 6 months.
I didn't get to go to rehab. I'm actually a little resentful about it. But so, and when you're in rehab, so you share a room. Are you responsible for doing chores or anything?
Oh yeah, they had us clean. I have this memory of polishing this banister with pledge and feeling so bitter. Why do I have to do this? There was a lot of old wood in the building, and
and it was polished.
Yeah, it was polished.
It's beaming.
Yeah, we had chores, and we had
so structured groups and times.
Yeah, groups like relapse prevention group and art therapy and things like that.
Art therapy. Did you love that?
Yes. Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you make?
The woman was named Moon. She was,
of course.
Yeah. And
Moon from Berkeley.
Yeah. And she was super inspiring. I don't think she was even a paid employee. I think she just came once a week because she never forgot what it was like to be broken and wanted to give back.
And the art.
She was so sweet. We did a lot of drawing, I think. I mean, I don't think it was elaborate art.
Nothing like ceramics.
No. I mean, I know that they do that at some places, but at this particular place, I think we used a lot of, crayons and
sticks.
What is it's better than a crayon. They're
sketch pencils or
sort of. I'll remember in the middle of the night tonight. Pastels. That's what I mean. We did. I think so. And we drew pictures of ourselves using and pictures of ourselves clean and that was super helpful for me. And I actually, in my show, Cleaner Daze, I have a lot of direct sort of inspired moments that are in the show that are based on things that I lived. And I kept that drawing that I had for a number of years.
The sober one?
Yeah, the one of like
or is
a
it
portrait.
side by side?
It's side by side.
Oh, okay.
What it was like.
Amazing.
And then how I visioned my life. Because at that time, I didn't have sort of like the what it's like now yet. It was just how horrible it was and how I wanted it to be.
How you wanted it.
Yeah, and how I pictured my life in the future.
What did you look like?
I think I was like a cheerleader, and I was leaping into the air, and it just says life. You know, like I'm celebrating life and
free.
Totally free. That's it's interesting.
Arms up.
Yeah, arms up.
Yeah, there's something interesting about arms up. Like if you physically put your arms in the air, it totally changes your physiology.
Maybe that's why I like jazzercising so much. We do a lot of jazz hands in the air.
Oh, that's right. You were telling me about
that. I did jazzercise this morning. I try to do it every day. That was another thing in early recovery that helped me was
exercise in general.
Yes. I don't think we talk about it enough in recovery about it's not just meetings. It's not just 12 like
No, we have to learn how to take care of our bodies. Like nutrition, you need to feed your mind. I mean, it's so funny. We don't take care of our brains. It's like your brain is the organ that makes all your decisions and determines how the quality of your life. You kind of need to take care of that.
Totally. Yeah, and the 12-step programs and 12-step rooms, that's one arm of arm. Yeah, it's like one tentacle on this like octopus. Exercise. Yeah, exercise is huge for me, and taking care of my mental health and school and doing my art, getting to that Zen place in my mind, like when I'm editing, when I'm film editing and shaping scenes and writing dialogue, and I tap into this sort of peaceful place where I know I'm in line with my destiny or something. Really? And I don't want to drink or use when I'm in that place. You know?
Right, yeah. Because you're like in the flow.
The flow, yeah. Exactly. And I think that it's not just recovery language, or it's not just that gets us to that place. We need to take care of ourselves in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Recovery is about recovering your whole self, right?
And jazzercise, I can tell, if I don't exercise for a few days, I start to completely go bonkers. I can tell. Yeah. I'm like, I'm really sad. My depression is taking over. And then I'll remember, I haven't exercised really in a few days. And
well, the exercise kicks in all your endorphins, right? So it's good brain chemistry. It's a good...
Yeah, which there were a couple times when I was injured, or also I had cancer last year and I had to go through chemo. And when I couldn't exercise, I found that it really scared me. It scared me in terms of my recovery too, just because it is such a huge part. And I also had a knee surgery, and I couldn't jazzercise for like 7 months. And it scared me.
What did you do instead? But there's other things that you can do exercise-wise that don't involve. Like, what about swimming?
I did the Sit and Be Fit program, which is like, well, it's for like old people. I would do it every day, a video.
All about that.
You're like, sitting and doing things in the chair. I did that every day with a video.
Oh, you did?
And I'm just like that.
You are so set for old age.
I know exactly how to take care of myself when I'm 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bonus.
Yeah.
The gifts of the program.
Yep.
The gifts of recovery.
Yeah.
Oh, so I don't want to gloss over the fact that you just said you had cancer and had to go through.
Oh, yeah.
So this happened in recovery. So you were already sober.
Yeah.
And how did you why did you go to the doctor to even get tested for that? How did that happen?
I found just like a giant lump behind my nipple one day.
Oh my God, it just
there out of the blue. I mean, I was like, what is this? I had my husband feel it. And then I went over, and my mom actually has cancer too. And I went to her house, and I was like, Mom, I think I might have cancer. We'll be hanging out in chemo chairs next to each other.
You're just joking
I was joking around. And I was like, but feel it. I had my mom feel it. And I went and had it tested, and it was like, this test, that test. And then bam, I found out it was cancer, and I had
what's it
surgery.
Called? It's like the estrogen.
Yeah, it's the one, it's like the good kind that supposedly is curable and treatable if you do all the treatment. But still, there was the whole thing of like mastectomy, lumpectomy.
Did you have to do that?
No, I did a lumpectomy.
Okay.
And she did such a good job. It was like the head of breast oncology at Stanford. You can't even tell. They don't look exactly alike. You can't even tell that
Sorry, I had to look at your boobs.
I know. I was almost went like this, but it
arms up.
I know, arms up, exactly. But it just, I did radiation, I did chemo, all that, and that exactly a year has passed because I found out last year, end of July, that I had it and went through all this stuff.
You must have been so freaked out.
I was, but it's weird. This is really messed up to admit, but when I found out I had cancer, for a depressed person, my reaction was really different than, let's say, my mom's, who has a really strong life force. I'm going to beat it. I'm going to beat it. For me, there was like this feeling like, oh, well, I guess I don't have to pay back my student loan debt. It was like really...
So you were like ready, so you were like, I'm fucking exhausted already.
Yeah, there was this weird piece of me that felt this relief,
Was it like your pain was validated? Like now you had something to point to? Or...
Maybe, I don't know, but it was definitely different than I think most people's reaction in terms of like, I'm going to fight it, I'm going to...
Well, you
eat
would
kale
think that's... eat kale.
And
let's not go overboard.
Well, I love kale, but like no sugar, no meat, like do the paleo thing or the cryogenic or all these things,
Did everybody start bringing all kinds of cures from the internet to you?
Definitely. People were sending me some articles for sure on Facebook.
People are trying to be so helpful. Can we talk about a few things not to say to somebody that has cancer? How about like everything happens for a reason?
Oh, right.
Fuck you.
I know. Yeah, no
Don't give
kidding.
me any crazy cures. Don't send me any fucking articles.
Yeah, pretty much. It's funny. I think that even now it seemed so surreal. Like it seems very like a dream. It felt like I was living somebody else's life, and now it's over.
And so it's just, are you detached from it?
I think so. I mean, I opted out of the long-term treatment, which who knows if that's a good idea.
What is long-term treatment?
The estrogen. Because if you suppress your body's estrogen, then for estrogen, the good kind of cancer, if you suppress estrogen, it can't grow, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'm not explaining it correctly, but
I wouldn't know the difference.
You have to take this medication ongoing for at least 5 years.
Okay.
And
you're opting out.
Yeah, because I took it for like a month and I thought I was losing my mind.
Oh, that's right.
Estrogen is a feel-good chemical.
I
Estrogen,
did not know
yeah, and if you suppress estrogen, a lot of women have a tough time taking. I think one of them is tamoxifen, and another one aromacin, and didn't sit well with me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just thought, I'd rather... It's like, what's more important, longevity or quality of life? And for me, it's quality of life,
yeah, for sure. Do you remember that line out of Steel Magnolias? Julia Roberts was like, I'd rather have 3 minutes of wonderful than a lifetime of nothing special.
Yeah.
Man, that is hit home for me. I would rather have quality.
Definitely. Okay. And I have too much to do right now to be sitting in my room sad. Because I struggle with that anyway. Depression has been... Oh, yeah. It's been ongoing. And I think...
do you take medication for it?
I do take medication.
Does it help?
It does help a lot. I would say it helps a lot. It raises the bottom. You know what I mean?
I hear it's a boost.
Yeah.
It's like a leg up. It's not a boost, but it's a leg up.
Yeah, and I've tried every which way I've gone off and back on, and I take a pretty low level, low dose, just, it's something for once we, quit doing drugs and we start hearing this language in recovery, which is like, whatever, don't take anything no matter what. And
I don't believe that at all.
Yeah, there's always this little voice that wishes I didn't have to take a pill, but the truth is, it's not mind altering. You don't get high from it. It just makes me not want to die.
I think that saying is misconstrued because I think it means don't take nothing no matter what means don't drink or use. Right, definitely. To fix your feelings. Definitely. No matter what. But if you have surgery and you need pain medication, then you should take it as prescribed. And have you ever had to have, like when you had your knee surgery, did you have to have somebody else regulate your medication? I didn't have somebody. Actually, maybe I think I did give it to my husband in the end. Yeah. I've had surgery a couple times and I've had to have my husband, like we have a plan. Yeah. He holds it. He doles it out. He says when it's over. Yeah. we make that agreement up front.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scary, slippery slope, you know?
I'm sure you've seen people relapse over that, right? Over the years you've been sober?
I recently, it's been a little while, but I spoke at a rehab, and there was a guy there who had my same amount of clean time who relapsed after a surgery. And he came up to me and gave me a big hug, and it was really powerful, and it was sad and scary all at the same time. When you see somebody with a lot of time who goes out and winds up in rehab, it's just a reminder that there are no guarantees. There is no cure. Yeah, it's like we're all in remission. There is not a cure, and I'm very aware of that, especially when life shows up and hard stuff goes on. I mean, I'm not one of those people that has been completely liberated from the desire to use, and it still sounds good to me when I'm having a tough day.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do instead?
What do I do instead? Jazzercise. Work on my I think when I'm really engaged in a project, like when I was working on Cleaner Daze every day, all day, when we're shooting, when I'm editing, post-production.
Yeah.
And I don't want to check out. I want to be really present. But when life shows up, like right now, my mom's really sick, and I'm not shooting Cleaner Daze right now. There's sort of a lull as we are getting the word out there and, getting the series out into the world. It's like when I have a lot of quiet, I've heard it called navel gazing. Like when you have time to just sort of reflect, like, why am I here? What's my purpose? I've just learned when I'm busy, I'm happy,
Don't you feel like it's like we have all this, I don't know about alcoholics and addicts. I feel like we have such big energy that it needs to be focused and directed,
totally.
Like channeled somehow, right? The channel, I get this image in my mind of like borders or boundaries, you know, and that are... But we can go so far, right? Yeah. Because we have big energy, but it does need to be channeled so it can be expressed in something positive.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. And I think that's why on my show, on Cleaner Daze, I've really tried to cast a lot of people who have some experience with addiction. And there are a lot of people on the show who have addiction backstories personally. Yeah. And it meant a lot to me to offer opportunities to people who have felt broken or who have felt like almost like there's a dirtiness that you feel like you can't wash off, particularly if you're an IV drug user. There's this shame and yuckiness and feeling like you're always separate from the world. And my looking ahead at shooting like season 2 of Cleaner Daze, I always want to offer opportunities to people who feel that feeling. Who feel worthless, who feel like it's too late for them. And because it's, there's this saying like once a junkie, always a junkie that is always sort of hanging in the air over all of us. And I feel like we have to stick together to prove that lie is dead and help each other succeed and help each other be in the world successfully and prove that, there is hope. Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to be like a role model or like I'm clean and everything's better and look at me, I'm, used to be a drug addict and now I'm clean. But just by every day sort of connecting with other people and just sort of trying to lift each other up.
It's interesting because the impression I get is like you don't want to, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but it's like you're not doing it in a prideful way. But the truth of the matter is those are facts, right? That is true. It did happen, and those were the circumstances. But the facts today are still facts. You are living this life, and it's different. Yeah, it is. And you are uniquely, it's like, I love the way that we're able to turn defects into assets because we are uniquely capable. Anybody who has overcome addiction is uniquely qualified to help somebody else out of their pain, which makes our experiences super valuable.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say it like that because for me, transforming that shame into sort of like a badge of honor and owning it, speaking out and using it as an asset. Yes. It's like it's almost like inviting your skeletons out of the closet to dance. Like just
let's bring it out of the closet.
And
I dealing with that shame is huge.
It is. It's ongoing. I mean, especially for IV drug users, it's, you know, there's like this hierarchy even in the rooms of 12-step meetings. It's
People
like,
are so judgy.
I drank, but I never, you know, snorted cocaine. Well, I snorted cocaine, but I never used needles. Oh, but I use needles, but I never shot meth. It's like this,
right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But
right.
We're all trying to, it's like, you know, the self-righteousness, you know, the spiritual pride. And on the other side of that is I'm not good enough.
Right.
You know, and I think that's everybody's core fear is that we're not good enough. But it's interesting though, because once you get into recovery, it's like you're trying to bring your light and your gift out into the world. And it's like, look what you're doing. You're bringing your light and you're bringing your gifts out into the world. And we don't need to be perfect first.
Yeah, it's true. Definitely not. And I think with my show, it's all about showing, like I said, the layers of addiction and the layers of recovery. For example, when I was in rehab, I was really struck by this one guy who had had 30 years clean, and he was a psychiatrist, and he relapsed over a divorce. He was having an affair, and he loved both his wife and...
Oh my God.
And, so he was in rehab with me, and he had had 30 years clean, and then he relapsed on China White heroin. He started snorting it, and he was and he was still treating people in the rehab that he worked in. And, like, that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
You know, that's what Cleaner Daze is about. It's about the layers. And if you're not working on your recovery, you might be working on a relapse, you know, and...
It's so important to be vigilant. And I think that's why it's so important. Don't you feel like it's important for people to have a tribe of accountability?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do. In terms of tribe, though, there's one thing that I struggle with NA and AA and 12-step meetings in general is that I feel, I wish we were all in the same boat together. There's so much of like, even in NA.
It's that hierarchy that you're just talking about.
It is. And in NA, it's like they frown on saying clean and sober because it's like two separate diseases.
They feel that it's two separate diseases?
No, they don't like it when people identify as an alcoholic and an addict. Because it's one? Yeah, it's one. They talk about the disease of addiction, and in AA it's like it's all about sobriety and alcoholism, and I did both. I did many years of AA and many years of NA, and sometimes I just wish, like, can't we all just get along and like do stuff together, because we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. And it's interesting. There's so many paradoxes in a life of recovery because, you know, at the end of the day, it's really not about the drugs and alcohol is the symptom, right?
Right.
And we talked about, like, we can find a million ways to check out, whether it's like TV, like I like TV still. I wish I could get addicted to exercise. That hasn't happened. I do have a little bit of hint of workaholism, right?
Yeah.
Like I work all day and then I do podcasting and all kinds of stuff. I can't even but it's all a distraction. But I feel like we're just trying to get to the point is to get to the pain and to learn how to deal with it. It's like emotion management. Right. It doesn't matter what the problem is. The solution is the same.
It's totally. I couldn't agree more. It's that wanting to check out. And I just notice sometimes when I'm, depending on who I'm talking to, there's this language of saying I'm sober or saying I'm clean. Yeah. And I use both. Yeah. You know, depending on who I'm talking to, you know.
Well, that's fair. You want to be able to meet people where they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I do. There are rooms I feel more comfortable in than others. Yeah. I didn't feel comfortable in NA. And that really was, like, I was a huge pot smoker, but was too lazy to find an MA meeting.
Yeah, right. I know. I think I went to one MA meeting. And when I was in LA, when I lived in Hollywood for like 6 years, I didn't feel connected with the NA meetings there at all. I didn't like them. And I had gotten clean in NA. And then,
interesting. It was just a different vibe.
I just never...
You just have to find your
It felt
people.
Very prison. It felt really low. I don't know. I just didn't like it.
It's a little rough.
And so,
it can be a little rough around the edges sometimes.
Yeah, and in LA, I just wrapped myself up in an amazing AA community there for... I guess I was there for 6 years. And
that's a long time.
Santa Cruz has a really great NA community, and I think I just connect with the literature more because I was a drug addict. I drank every day. Right. It's just there's something about saying I'm an addict that feels more all-encompassing.
Okay.
You know?
I do tend to do that too.
You know, because it does touch on like TV addiction, sugar, everything. Because
it is
I don't feel like I'm an alcoholic anymore. Identifying as an alcoholic feels like it's not telling the whole story.
It certainly is not as cool as being a drug addict.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Just kidding.
I don't know.
It's kind of lame.
But here I'm saying why we should all just like get along, and now I'm saying why NA is better. But it's not.
You just need to go where you feel comfortable, and some meetings are. You
have to find your people.
Fine. Yeah, it's all fine. It's all okay. Yeah. You just need to find your people.
Yeah.
But find some people, right?
Right.
Keep trying until you find your people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's still hard for me. I like people, but I also really like to be by myself.
I know. Well, there's balance, right? Because as I've gotten older, it's like I do need my solitude more, but there's that balance between isolation and recharging.
Yeah.
Like at some point, it becomes self-indulgent.
Right.
So
But
do you have a structure for your week or?
I do. Yeah, I do. However, if my life is too predictable, I find that I get like a tick.
You're a creative. You need to be.
I mean, there's certain
difference.
things like, you know, my home group Sunday nights, you know, and I have Thursday nights that I'm up at the camp with the teens. And
that's right.
that regularity, I think, is good, you know, and hanging out with my dog daily, going on walks, and jazzercise.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I do have my routine.
Yeah,
I do.
But you have also some variables for variation.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, we're looking at shooting a scene from the next season in a couple weeks, and now I'm in my head about that, like excited and planning and trying to think about it.
Soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's soul work that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that you're using your creativity and your experience to get the message of recovery out there. It does take you're doing the, I don't know, for me it's like the hard work of normalizing mental health issues.
Definitely. Yeah, I think also by showing addiction as human, like not as a spiritual malady or something wrong with you, but as something that it's just something that a lot of us deal with, and everybody, maybe even I would say, is addicted to something. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think everybody knows somebody, and right now, especially with the opioid epidemic, and it's really, I feel like our show is really timely just because like bringing up the conversation, and I'm tired of always talking about the opioid epidemic and the negative, like people are dying and we have to pay attention, and you know, I don't like, well, let's focus on some solutions. Yeah. You know, what can we do? And for me, I feel like one of the things we can do is recover out loud. And there, you know, some people aren't so into that. I know a lot of people who are not out with their recovery. Mm-hmm. Some people I know who have like 30 years clean and who aren't out at work because they work with kids or they work in a hospital. And I feel like the danger of hiding our recovery is that it sort of perpetuates this culture of shame and secrecy.
It does.
You know, and I understand it's a personal choice, and
I think there's a place for it though, right? Mm-hmm. I appreciate that there was a room that I could go to that felt safe and that I could share, and people were sharing at a heart level about some really personal, gut-wrenching things.
Yeah.
And that you wouldn't be exposed or persecuted because of it.
Yeah.
But like everything else, there's a time and place for everything, right? So
yeah,
and I think that's the one thing I struggled with, doing the podcast is that, I wanted to bring my recovery out loud, and, it's in the rooms, it's attraction, not promotion.
Right.
And what I'm doing is promotion.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a mission. It's like, I see that you're doing the same thing. You're trying to get the message of hope and recovery out there to help people out of their pain.
Definitely.
There needs to be both. There's a time and place for both. So.
Yeah. Yeah. We also started a nonprofit called Loud and Clean, which produces Cleaner Daze. And it's sort of all about promoting creative works as a vehicle for recovery and honoring personal stories over those statistics I spoke about.
Okay.
because there's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of really scary statistics out there.
I know.
Supposedly, yeah, I mean, overdose deaths, I think it's the second leading cause of death in teenagers and the first in people under 50 or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. I'm probably screwing up the language a little bit, but it's crazy.
Yeah, it's not good. So I do agree that, we're bringing the message of hope and recovery and fun, though. One of the things that people are like, I don't know about you, when I first got sober, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to have fun again. But I was just talking to this guy this morning, Sober Life Radio, and he was talking about how much fun that they have. And it's true. It's like, we are not a glum lot. These people who are in recovery, we are like the class clowns. Like, everybody was
the biggest party animals of all, who just figured out it wasn't working for them after a while.
Right, yeah. We have a good time.
Yeah, I would say so.
Really good time.
Well, that's also why my show is actually a dark comedy. It's not an anti-drug PSA. It's not sad. I mean, it has sad moments, but it's like, especially the teenagers in rehab, like, they're teenagers, they're kids, so they're running around fucking with each other. There's a lot of comedy in the way they relate with each other. Yeah. And, first and foremost, they're kids who happen to have a problem with drugs, but, I didn't get clean to lose my sense of humor.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun these days?
What do I do for fun?
You do the jazzercise. You do your creative... You're producing and editing.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's almost like my work on Cleaner Daze is my fun.
But they're fun people that you've surrounded yourself with. I'm sure there's a lot of laughter and joking around.
Totally. I don't think it's hard for me to relax. As a matter of fact, we just left town for 3 days. We went to like our family cabin, and I finally let myself down and just like let myself lie in the hammock and work on a puzzle. I was like, this is awesome. This is fun. Yeah. And I never let myself do it.
Isn't that funny?
It's like I always feel like maybe because I was...
channel that energy.
Yeah, and also I think because I wasted so many years not doing anything with my life that I feel like if I'm not working or every minute like being effective at something, you know what I mean? If I'm not doing some action items, then I'm failing somehow.
Right,
you know?
Making up for lost time.
Yeah. I think one of the big things I did do for fun is going to Burning Man every year. That's how I met my husband. Gosh. Yeah.
That's how you met.
Yeah.
Is Burning Man still a thing?
Oh, yeah. I've been going since the first time I went was like in 1997.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I took some years off when I got sober. Because I was scared to go there because it's a big,
There's a big sober community that goes there.
There is. Yeah, there's like... there are meetings. I got a wooden nickel with last year, a 16-year wooden nickel. That was pretty cool. There's meetings there and it's fun. But this year we took a year off just because we've been working on Cleaner Daze all the time and we're hoping to sort of take it to the next level, and it's a busy time. And it's a lot of work to go to Burning Man. We have like put on a big camp, and it's a huge amount of work. Yeah. So we're taking the year off, which is good and bad. I kind of miss the preparation because we make giant art.
Oh, giant art.
Yeah, like a giant swing set. Like we usually we're working on preparing to go right around this time of year. So I think I'm having a little bit of FOMO because everyone's working on stuff going.
But you have another big project.
Yes. So. Yeah.
That's super exciting. Too. Well, we'll definitely leave links in the show notes.
Yeah.
So everyone can check out Cleaner Daze. We'll be following, and you'll have to keep me up to date as far as the progression goes. That's really
I will say
exciting.
that a little plug is that we are going to be casting for season 2. So
you are?
People who are in the Northern California region. Some people contacted me for season 1 who lived out of state, and it's just too tough with that. Especially when we need to do pickup shots and things like that. But particularly young people, and I always give...
What's the age range?
I'd say with young people, like 18 to 25, because it's problematic for legal reasons to work with minors, so we just don't do it. Okay. We have older people playing the teens, so 18 to 22, and we also need a few drug counselors in there, and so that's going to be any age, but... We give preference to people in recovery. I mean, I don't want to say like we won't cast, people who have no experience, because I cast a wide net and let everybody come to the auditions. But even if you don't have acting experience, if you've always wanted to do that and you're an addict in recovery and feel like you want to be on Cleaner Daze, you saw season 1 and loved it, then people can reach out to me on the website on the cleanerdaze.com and just click on connect with me
Daze,
and just
D-A-Z-E.
DAZE, and just write to me.
Okay. We will definitely leave links to all that. What are the dates?
We we're still figuring it out, but in a couple months, hopefully.
So we're early July 2018. So if you're listening to this 2 years from now,
Too
late.
Oh, right. Yeah, it'll be 2018. Or late summer.
Late summer 2018. Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for driving over the hill and coming to my house and recording.
It was super fun. I feel like I was kind of all over the place, but that's how my brain works.
Me too. I feel like this is our audience, right?
Right.
Just fine.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for having me.
One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.